Hey there, it's me Bryce from Douche Gaming, and welcome back to another one of my top 10 games. It's my top 10 games of the year 2021 that I'm doing close to 3 months into 2022. I know, I'm always very timely with these things. But yeah, I feel like I've got a pretty solid list. I played quite a few more games than I expected to last year, a lot of which I really enjoyed. I was super surprised by some of these games that I thought would just be like okay, but then turned out to be some of my faves. Yeah, just last year, solid games, some really solid stuff. Once again, my sort of guidelines as this list are as follows. The games that end up on this list don't necessarily have to be released in that year. They just have to be a selection of games that I played a lot of that year, regardless of when they released. So, could have released in like 1980, or just at any fucking point. As long as I played it a lot, enjoyed it a lot, and it really stuck out to me. That's really what matters. So yeah, number 10, fucking Supraland. So this game, it's interesting. It reminded me a lot of my childhood. It reminded me of like early platformers in a way, but yet I can't really name any games off the top of my head that this really compares to that I can think of. It's got a great mix of puzzles and combat that's like very simple but a lot of fun. It's very, very whimsical in nature. You know, you're playing from the perspective of like a toy person who's in your whole world is like a sandbox, like a child's sandbox, and you go on this great adventure to find what the hell was it? The magical MacGuffin that keeps you going to do your great quest, and it's very simple in nature, but there's some pretty challenging puzzles at times, and there's some parkour. There's some fun combat here and there, but it's mostly puzzle-centric. I know that there is a expansion that is released for it. I have not played it. I don't know if or when I'll get to it. But from the main game itself, I did enjoy it quite a bit. It wasn't, like, amazing, but it stood out to me definitely as a game that I haven't seen its like in a while. Like a game that has a heavy focus on puzzle solving as from like a first-person perspective and in a 3D environment like that. So in a way, it kind of harkens back for me personally to like Portal and Portal 2, because those are definitely some of the biggest sort of puzzle games that really have a place in my heart. And so in a way, this reminded me of that. There were some really fun mechanics that fucked around with like gravity and things. And yeah, it was just a pretty fun experience, and it provided the feeling of nostalgia for something I have no recollection of, if that makes sense. It was a good game. It was solid. It was enjoyable. I would certainly recommend it for people who like whimsical puzzle games with a bit of combat involved. Pretty fun. Number 9 is Black Mesa, the fan-made remake of Half-Life 1, the first Half-Life game. Now, some people may call me a blasphemer. I have not played the original Half-Life. I don't even know if I own it, actually. Or do I? I don't think I do. Well, anyway, after Todd played through the remake himself, he suggested I play it. I got it for myself, and I was pretty surprised how much I liked it. It was very satisfying to play. The gunplay was a very satisfactory thing. Very fun to shoot all the weapons that they had. The level design was quite enjoyable. I imagine that all the level design is practically the same, except for Zen, the alien world that was very briefly and not very sort of heavily explored in the original, from what I understand. Was an absolute eye candy. I loved it in the remake because they went all out and redesigned the whole thing, added a bunch of stuff. There's a fucking giant head crab that you have to fight. That was fun. A little tedious, but very enjoyable. Overall, it was nice to see a fairly old Valve game from a fan's perspective, or I guess not really from a fan's perspective, in a new light, in a new sort of graphical engine. You know, everything looked very nice. Everything the physics engine played and felt very nice to move around. All the movement was pretty good. You know, it's your standard shooter, but it felt, you know, it was good. It's solid. It's a Valve game, so there's not much to really say other than that. You know that quality-wise, it's gonna be a very solid experience, because even if it's a fan remake, you know, the basis of the original is still there, except for the redesign of Zen. And even then, I very much like what they did with Zen. Zen was gorgeous. It was a fucking beautiful, beautiful part of the game. I kind of wish the whole game was that, but I really enjoyed it. Number 8 is Noita. There was quite a lot of excitement around this game for a while. Probably still is a bit. Very simple premise. You're a wizard, you go into a cave, and you kill shit. Or the shit kills you. And I can appreciate simplicity like that. I also like pixel games, especially in where the whole shtick for this is that every pixel is simulated. You know, where gravel and dirt will fall down. For pixels, a very sort of a simulated representation of like landslides and things like that inside the caves, and rock falls and stuff like that. Electricity affects liquids and things like fire and lava pours and floods and overflows and things like that, and everything moves in the game, and anything that does move has the potential to crush you or drown you or melt the skin off your bones if it's acid or something like that. And then the very interesting and kind of confusing mechanic to sort of exchange spells from the wands you get. Since you're a wizard, you find wands and they have different attacks and spells attached to them. And you use those weird spell combinations that you yourself can combine and mix and match to create weird and overpowered and just get insane results. I found myself very confused at how the whole thing worked. I never really figured it out. I probably should have just looked it up. But even so, it's still a very enjoyable and very difficult, very punishing experience. But just the whole alien nature of it. You don't know why you're there as a character. You don't know why the fuck did you come to a cave to go to the center of the earth or whatever you're doing, and find a bunch of weird creatures that seem really bizarre and just out of this world. There is one part of one section of Noita where it looks like you're fighting a bunch of Mandalorians from Star Wars, so that was interesting. And then there's like some really hard to find and difficult to accomplish secrets in the game. Like if you don't have to go in the cave to begin with, you can stay on the surface and like travel 20 minutes to the east and find a pyramid and like find a bunch of crazy shit inside that will probably also kill you. Yeah, Noita, what a bizarre game that is also kind of a masterpiece in its own way. It's just a gem. One of those unique games that just kind of comes along every now and then that really sets a new standard of concept for what a game can be, and just how weird, because it's a roguelike in essence, mechanically speaking, and that's not new, but just the way it's presented. It's all about presentation with this, and it's very, very, it sticks in your mind, for sure. Number 7, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, in general, I'm not the biggest fan of Assassin's Creed. I think the last time I played an Assassin's Creed game before this was Black Flag. And that game's good because pirates and shit, you know. In that game you care less about the whole Assassin's Creed part of it, and you're more like, pirates, okay, I like piloting a ship around and sailing the Caribbean and pillaging Cuba and you know, doing whatever else. That's an enjoyable experience to just be a pirate. Um, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they changed it up from the last time I was really familiar with the games. So it's an open world experience that takes place in Greece and the Greek Isles of the Mediterranean, and it's such a bizarre change of pace from Assassin's Creed that I'm familiar with, because it feels and is designed to be more of a traditional RPG open world experience where you do quests, you have the freedom to go anywhere you want and pick up side quests and talk to people and do what you want. There's also 3 sort of simultaneous main story quest lines that you can follow. And you can, you gain experience, you gain levels, you get perks. It's very RPG. Now, usually I would criticize games like this where it just sort of mashes a bunch of popular game-style mechanics in just to be a crowd pleaser. In this case, I don't feel that way. I really enjoy this game, and the main reason, because it is the least Assassin's Creed game I have played. If you removed the Assassin's Creed part of the title and just left Odyssey, you would have a game that would have achieved greatness, I think. If it focused less on the stupid Assassin's Creed storyline that doesn't need to exist anymore, where it's like, oh, the fucking Templars, who aren't even a problem at this point, which, it's seemingly in this game, they don't really talk about them at all. If you just left the whole Greek sort of appeal to the game and just focused on like the fantastical elements of mythological Greece, you would have had a game that would have achieved greatness. But instead you have a game that is on the verge of greatness due to some decent character writing, some very punchy and fun combat and movement mechanics, an open world traversal, to instead, you have a game that, and one of its advertising pictures on Steam and stuff shows, a Medusa or some other mythological elements, but doesn't really present them very often until like the end of the game, because they're trying so hard to still keep it tied to the whole Assassin's Creed conspiracy Templar bullshit story that at this point should have been left in the original trilogy, doesn't really belong anywhere in this game. Because a couple criticisms I do have of this game is that all 3 storylines, I think it's cool that there's 3 main storylines that you can simultaneously follow, but all of their endings are weak. I really do feel that way. I think all their endings feel a bit rushed dialogue-wise, don't have a lot of impact. It feels like, it just feels weak sauce at the end. And this game took me, I believe, 80 hours to complete, and I had to take a break, sort of 40 hours in, like a couple months break, because this game is big, but it's like the unfortunate big of like how a lot of it's the trap that a lot of open world RPGs have fallen into in recent times, where it's like it's super massive, the world is so big, but a lot of it is empty, and it's not like there's still a lot to do in this game, but some of it feels like busy work. The whole oh, fetch me this, protect this person while they go here. Some of it doesn't feel impactful to the story or just entertaining to do at all, because there's no weight to what you're doing. It feels meaningless at times. That being said, in terms of world design, the game is gorgeous. Even though there will be times where you're going through the world and it feels like there's nothing happening, sometimes it doesn't really matter in the game, because the game is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love the way, the visual aesthetic they went for with this game. It looks so good. And gameplay was very fun. The Assassin's Creed sort of movement mechanics where you can climb up walls and stuff, that's still there, and that's still enjoyable for the most part. But combat, I think, was more a focal point of this game. It felt like a more traditional RPG, and I think it would have done a lot better if it just lost the Assassin's Creed identity. They don't need it anymore. it would have been a lot more successful, I guarantee, if they had removed that aspect of it. But even so, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I still really enjoyed it. I just think it was on the verge of being so much more if they had focused more on like the mythological elements of the Greek world. It could have been so much more, I feel. Which is kind of why it falls short of number 6, Cyberpunk 2077. Now, Cyberpunk 2077, it feels like one of the most hyped games in recent memory, behind like Elden Ring, right? And hype is a dangerous thing, because it can really blind expectations to being something more than what it really is gonna be. Now, an unfortunate reality is that a lot of games, AAA titles in recent memory, and probably going forward, are getting released with more problems on day one, more bugs, more technical issues. And Cyberpunk 2077, as everyone knows, was definitely no stranger to that. It had a lot of problems. However, I don't think it deserves probably even half the flack that people gave it. Because at its core, it's still a solid RPG. It still has a lot of interesting and engaging quests. It has some of the best character writing I've seen in an RPG in a long time. It was done very well to a point where, both with the voice acting and the writing combined, and I'm sure the direction as well, a lot of the characters you spoke to and spent a lot of time with felt like you were having proper human interactions. And I don't mean that like, you know, you felt like you were actually talking to them. I felt like they could be very believable characters. Like you could believe they were real people because of the way that the dialogue was written. The situations of the characters felt kind of believable. And also the inflection that was given to them by the voice actors. The voice actors did a very good job with what they were given. And as a result, in terms of character writing, very good game. And in terms of the overall story, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I was kind of doubting at first the whole Keanu Reeves thing. Like I was thinking in my mind, like, oh, they're just railing on the hopes that, you know, because Keanu Reeves' face is planted on it, that you know, people are going to like it solely because of that. To my surprise, Keanu Reeves did a decent job at playing a character that was not, at voice acting effectively, I guess. Or did he do? I think they did mocap. I don't remember. I don't think I even looked into it. It looks like I think they did mocap. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be completely wrong. Don't listen to me. Anyway, I think Keanu Reeves did a fine job with this character. I thought Johnny Silverhand was pretty likable. At the beginning, I didn't like him at all. At the end, I liked him quite a lot. By that point, I thought the story was really well done. It's a very sad story. It's very depressing, but then again, so is the setting of being sort of heavy industrialist cyberpunk, very corporate controlled planet. Yeah, that's a depressing kind of world. And body augmentation freaks me the fuck out, so that's also something. But even so, it was a very flashy world. In terms of the open world aspect, I really enjoyed just exploring Night City. I certainly don't think that Cyberpunk 2077 was a next-gen RPG like they were claiming it to be. But I think in terms of gameplay, in terms of story, I think it's a solid RPG. I think the only sort of next-level thing that they achieved was the feeling of the scale of the city that you were in. It didn't feel like a kind of run-down, quote-unquote, city that you would explore in, like, how Skyrim cities are quite small, but they're meant to be, like, central points of the world. Whiterun or Solitude, how it's, like, it's decently big, but it doesn't feel like a proper city, I guess. Night City feels like a fucking city. And they had to make sure it felt like one, because that's where the whole game takes place. And yet there are even parts of the game where you go to the outskirts where it is sort of desert-like, and you can see the massive city from like a couple miles out, and it looks fantastic. I think it was quite, as Keanu Reeves would say, breathtaking, walking through the streets of Night City and feeling really lost in the streets of what felt like a living city, barring some of the bizarre, I don't know if you could call them bugs, just little glitchy things that would happen while walking through the streets. Right. At number 5 is Vermintide 2. Man, smashing rats with hammers. I can stop there. I can move on. No, I didn't get into the whole Warhammer thing until a couple years ago when Todd and my friend Patrick suggested that I play Total War Warhammer, the first one, and so I played that for about 55 hours, and then I got the second one when that came out, and I have a lot more hours than that. But then I was turned on to Vermintide, which also takes place in Warhammer Fantasy. And Vermintide 2, I've played more than the first one for sure. It has a lot more going on, I feel like. But it is just a nice itch scratcher for that Left 4 Dead niche of a horde shooter. But instead of having, whereas you have some guns, your main method of killing hordes of enemies, in this case rat people and chaos corrupted cultists and whatnot, and ogres and trolls, rat ogres specifically, you have medieval weaponry, and I'm down with that because the way they did melee combat in this game is so fucking satisfying. When you take your fucking warhammer or your flail, which is my favorite weapon type in the game, and you swing it and you fucking smash like 15 rats in front of you, their heads fucking explode and they all go flying. It is spectacular. It's so fucking good. Just go whoosh whoosh and it fucking flies, and oh man, you send rats flying, which is a lot more satisfying than killing rats in real life, because killing rats in real life, while a very proactive and good thing to do if you have rat problems like me, it's disgusting. Especially if you have a rat trap, you're sleeping tight in your bed, and out in the living room you're just here, and you go out there. Citation needed. Rats don't sound like that when they die, but it's still violent, and you go out there and their heads get caught in the snap trap, and it's fucking gory, and there's blood and shit, and their eyes are bulging out of their heads. Anyway, Vermintide 2, all the fun of rat killing without the smell is my tag is what I would say to sell someone on Vermintide 2, if that appeals to you. Rat smashing in the virtual realm. That's Vermintide 2. I would advise it. It's very fun, especially since you can play it with friends. Very fun to do that. Okay, so moving away from the gore and all that, something much more peaceful, much more relaxing, and soothing for the soul. At number 4 is a game called Sable. Now, I played this on Game Pass when Game Pass was on sale for, I think, like $1 or something really cheap like that. And this is a wonderfully artistic game about a young woman named Sable, who is part of a tribe of nomads who live on this kind of desert planet that is most certainly not Earth, from what I can tell while playing it. And in the game, you sort of leave your tribe as a young woman to go find effectively your purpose. You go, it's like a rite of passage for these nomads. You leave your tribe and you go explore the world and see it for yourself, and use that time to sort of get an idea of how the world works and the various cultures that live around, and you use that time to get a sense of purpose, find what you want to do in life. And when you come back to your tribe at the end of your journey, which I believe is called the gliding, I think is what they called it, you come back and you choose your mask or purpose basically, it's a really fascinating game. It's a beautiful game for a start. The art style is very simple. I think they rely heavily on cell shading, but it works very well for what they were doing. And it's a game entirely about exploration with some minor puzzle solving here and there, just discovering bizarre mysteries in a bizarre world full of bizarre cultures and some bizarre creatures as well. It's hard to say anything without saying too much, I feel like. Basically, other than what I've already said, one thing that really stood out to me is the world itself, the world building. There's a really fascinating culture to the people that they're all humans that live in this sort of desert planet, I suppose, where there's mostly like nomadic tribes, but there are a couple cities dotted around, and everyone wears masks. And it's a cultural thing that when you look at someone's mask, it's supposed to identify what their, I guess, sort of their role is, their job or their purpose is. So like one person you can tell is like a mechanic, or someone who goes and finds scrap and is like a scavenger. And some people have like a weird clockwork mask that tells you that they're a cartographer, and they fly around in these hot air balloons all over the planet. And it's a really cool game. I really enjoyed it, and I probably would want to play it again, honestly, at some point. But for people who like really artsy games and really relaxing games that are really heavily focused on exploration, I would advise Sable. If you don't want to buy it, it's on Steam, but if you don't want to buy it and just like want to test it out, test the waters, it's on Game Pass. So I would certainly highly suggest that you try it out if you're someone who likes those kinds of games. It's a really, really beautiful game with a beautiful soundtrack as well. My mind is blanking at the moment. There's a band that did the soundtrack for the game. I can't remember what their name is. But anyway, moving on to number 3. Going back to vermin killing, Deep Rock Galactic, where instead of smashing rats, you're smashing bugs. So, on an alien planet as space dwarves. Once again, kind of says it all right there. Except instead of having, being like fantasy, it's sci-fi, and you have all sorts of different tools and methods to kill bugs. As you mine for minerals and crystals and ore and whatnot, and sometimes bug eggs, which are, it's something else. It's another horde shooter where it's a little more objective focused, where you're not purely just killing shit on the way from point A to point B. You're more actively focused on completing different objectives for different missions. So some missions you'll be building oil rigs, which are my favorite missions, and you build these pipes that you can ride on like rails, and it's so fun. There are some missions where you have to go collect the bug eggs, or some missions where you have to kill like these really monstrous armored bugs that cause some real problems. Some missions you have to collect shiny crystals, so on and so forth. Am I repeating myself at this point? I'm having Alzheimer's. Brain problems. I am tired. Deep Rock Galactic, I really enjoy it, mainly because you can play with friends. Most horde shooters are just better with friends, hands down. I find it's kind of hard to play them on your own, I don't feel as motivated to play them if friends are not present. But Deep Rock Galactic, it's also one of those games where it's consistently interesting and exciting because the developers are consistently and constantly adding new material to the game and new content. It's never a dull day playing it. Going back every now and then on new updates to see new objectives, new enemy types, new biomes, and to see what else is there to play around with weapon-wise, with the classes they have. It's very fun, and personally, I'm a gunner. I like playing with the machine gun. It's a minigun, sorry. The minigun is just great. And also, the new weapons they've added for the gunner are pretty fun to play around with, too. There's the autocannon, which feels like you just have an anti-air turret in your hands, and you're just exploding bugs into a million pieces with it. Deep Rock Galactic, pretty pretty fucking alright. At number 2 is RimWorld. Oh boy, RimWorld. How I love thee. Now I feel like games that are a little more sandboxy, and a little more simplistic in visual style, but provide a lot of depth due to the amount of things that can happen. RimWorld is that game. It's just the game of endless possibilities in a sandbox sense, where you crash on a planet, and you have a couple colonists to help you build a place of your own to call home, while you get ravaged by the wilderness and by the sort of AI storyteller that calls horrible things to happen to you, like bugs infesting the nearby caverns to eat your souls when they feel like it, or meteors crashing down onto you and crushing your face, or raiders coming in increasingly large amounts to raid your supplies and do horrible things to your butt. RimWorld's got it all, including organ trading. Everyone brings that up, and you know what? They're right. Best part of the game, organ trading. Organ Trader Simulator, RimWorld. Oh yeah. I don't know what else there is to say about RimWorld. It's like, there's no playthrough is the same with RimWorld. You are always going to have some crazy shit happen while playing it, and it's super fun to watch the stories of your colonists unfold as you sort of loosely guide them in their daily lives to try and survive in this horrible, inhospitable place. But that's what makes it so good. It's just constant excitement, intrigue, drama. It is just a storyteller. A sandbox storyteller, really, is a good way that I would describe it. Finally, at number 1, this game surprised me. Oh boy, number 1. Fucking just came out of nowhere for me. I played it. It was the first game I played this year. And when I played it, I was like, I do not think there's going to be another game that can top this. And I was right. This is number 1 for me this whole year. It is so fucking good. This is another artsy game, similar to Sable, and that has a very gorgeous art style. It has a gorgeous soundtrack. It is a game that its story and characters really touch the soul, if you believe in that sort of hippie bullshit. I don't, of course. No, but Spiritfarer is the game I'm talking about. Rarely does the combination of visuals, storytelling, and music manage to bring tears to my eye. It doesn't happen super often in games, but Spiritfarer is one of those games. And I'm sure it does not help that the subject matter of this title is very somber. It's about death, but they try to sort of paint it in a kind of a lighter picture that, you know, death is not the end sort of thing. We all have to let go eventually. It's very sad, and you meet a lot of characters that you really don't want to see go, but they have to. But ultimately, it's a very relatable title. You know, you feel like everyone experiences death at some point in their lives, usually at multiple points, and Spiritfarer really is, you know, it kind of brings back some of those feelings, and that's not entirely pleasant, you know, when you think about it that way, but the game itself is a beautiful sort of look and perspective on that sort of thing. It's another game that focuses a lot on exploration and material gathering, so you can sort of put a boat together and sail around the seas as sort of the ferryman, and sort of ferry souls from one place to the afterlife and help them move on. And it's a really relaxing game and really just gorgeous in general. It's made by the same people who made Sundered, which, for those who may, I think their name is Thunder Lotus Studios. I could be getting that wrong. But pretty much everything they do is all hand-drawn, and it is all the animations they do and all the color choices they make. It's all hand-drawn, and it's all super beautiful. Such eye candy. Uh, it's truly a beauty to behold. It is one of my favorite games ever, Spiritfarer. I would highly recommend it to anyone and everyone, no matter what kind of genres you generally play. Spiritfarer, if you just want a game to really sort of relax and cry and laugh to and just sort of all around enjoy it from all emotional perspectives. Spiritfarer is a really enjoyable experience. And since the first time I played it, they released 3 sort of content drops for the game. I think it's the only content drops are doing it for free that add new expanded content to the game to make it a bit longer. And I still myself have to go back through and play the whole thing again to experience the new stuff. But even without that, the base game, I can assure you, it is my favorite game of last year. And it's probably going to be in my top favorite games ever for a very long time, I'm sure. So yeah, my top 10 of 2021, there it is. I try not to be too rambly about it this time. Part of it is that my brain is kind of scattered right now. I don't have too many thoughts to say, so if I sounded a bit repetitive, I'm kind of like out of it right now. I just kind of wanted to get this done instead of just postponing it till never, you know, so I just wanted to get it out of the way. I will say here at the end, short little update perhaps of what's happening this year, what we might do. I don't know if I might, I'll probably record my experience with Elden Ring when I get my hands on that. I don't know. I might record some stuff with Warhammer 3. I don't know. It's just a possibility, something to think about. We might play Strange Brigade as a co-op group. Since we did Zombie Armored Trilogy, I myself have certainly been itching for another experience like that. I really enjoyed those games and really want to experience another horde shooter of that nature. And Strange Brigade is kind of up that alley, so there's that possibility. Other than that, I don't know what else. You know what? I still have to finish Outer Wilds. You know, that's still a thing on my to-do list. Fucking just me being hesitant, being a fucking pussy over looking at that game and being like, space scares me, especially space fucking anglerfish. I know, it's just a game, but it affects me anyway. I'll get to it, I swear to God. And finally, Pathologic 2. I've had the game for a while now. I want to get to it. I'm probably going to record it. So yeah. But anyway, thank you for joining me for this another yearly ramble. Just crazy rantings of me talking about my favorite games of the previous year, or of that year, whenever I record this usually. I'm a couple of months late, as you can tell. But yeah, I'll keep posting Half-Life 2 co-op like I've been doing. And then who knows what'll happen from there. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you fuckers next time. See ya.